big brain staring into microscopes is.
Okay, welcome to our Wednesday night live stream. I am your host, Dana Morningstar, and this is a live stream that I try to do every Wednesday night. It goes from 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for about 3 hours, but due to kind of some extenuating circumstances, my father's health being the main one right now, these are going to be cut short. So we'll just do what we've been doing for the past few Wednesdays. I'll just let the chat run. I'll stay on for about 15 minutes or so, and then you guys can be there for each other. I also just wanted to say I apologize. I apologize for last week. I didn't properly mute myself. There's 3 different places I mute myself, and I missed the one I missed was the one that I needed to use. So I apologize for that. I think I'm not even exactly all sure what everybody heard, but I know people were trying feverishly to get a hold of me, and I had my phone off because I was doing the live stream. And I just want to say thank you guys, and also a big thank you to Angie Atkinson. I need to thank, I'll mention that on the Tuesday live stream, but somebody had messaged her and had said, hey, in panic, that you could still hear what I was saying, and that it was personal conversations. And so she was texting me and calling me and really went above and beyond trying to get a hold of me as well. And I think that just speaks volumes about her as a person. And I don't know, that really meant a lot to me that you guys went to that effort and that she went to that effort, because it was kind of late, and it was above and beyond. So that was very much appreciated. Tyler says that was me that messaged her. Okay, good deal. Thank you for doing that. I really appreciate it. So yes, forward looking says try to remember the mute this time. Yes, I will. And I'm going to actually leave the screen up after I think I've muted it properly to see if you guys can still hear me. So Clint, hi. Welcome, Edamame, or Kamami, not Edamame, Kamami, bonsoir. Jack says, so did you eventually get Angie Atkinson's calls and texts? Oh yeah, but not for like almost until maybe even after the live stream. I think it was after the live stream was already over. And I just happened to check my phone because I got busy doing stuff, and like she was blowing up my phone, and I'm like, oh man, what happened? And then it was text message after text message after text message. So yeah, she was really wonderful about it. Yes, I agree, Phil. It says, I think you guys did awesome. It's nice to see people working together even when a brain fart happens. Yes, I agree. That was some good teamwork. I really appreciate it. And forward looking says, I had to leave the room. It creeped me out listening to a private conversation. Yeah, I can imagine. And I haven't even, like I said, I just turned that video to private as soon as I thought to do so. So I don't even know what all we said, but I'm sure it was a lot of family stuff that was uncomfortable to listen to. Oh, wonderful. Clint says, I'm 10 months out of a relationship with a super narcissist. I have rebuilt relationships with my friends, and I appreciate what you've taught us. Oh, I'm so glad that you're getting your sea legs under you, and that you're taking all of this energy and you're using it to not only rebuild your life, but to build it into something that's yours and something that you love. That's awesome. Let's see. Jill says, how are you? It's good to catch up. I am hanging in there. We decided today, I was very proud of both my stepmother and myself with our boundaries, because we really realized today that we need help, and people have been offering help for a while, and we just didn't want to inconvenience anybody. And so we just kept saying, oh, we got it, we're fine. And we're to the point where we're just exhausted. So we decided today, we're like, we need help. My dad's morning routine took about 3 hours this morning with the two of us. So we're just not getting much sleep. So thankfully, my brother and my stepbrother are stepping up, and we're going to sit down this weekend and get out a calendar and start getting some shifts down and get a plan. And I'm looking forward to that, because I need to leave the house, and even if I can just go for a walk would be nice. So Denise, oh, I'm so sorry to hear this. She says, my husband finally met someone. He's having an affair with someone and doesn't know I know. It was all over the phone bill. Oh my goodness. That's just heart-wrenching, isn't it? When you find proof in black and white like that on a bill. I am so sorry. Have you thought about what the next step is, or are you still feeling numb and in shock? Hooray, good for you. Says, I'm back in school and working on my psychology homework. You continue to inspire me and all of the others here tonight. Well, I am so glad. That means a lot to me. And good for you, getting your homework done. Lisa says, hi. No one has touched on the specific subject of the vulnerabilities of a widower or widow and a narcissist. These dynamics, and I would also add a person who's freshly divorced, anybody, but I think it is significantly worse with a person, a widow or a widower. There's the loneliness factor there. And, when we're lonely and when we're vulnerable, we tend to make really poor decisions because we're all thinking short term. It's just how we're hardwired. And that's the dangerous part of times like that, because we're going to kind of take these make these knee-jerk decisions in order to kind of meet our needs in that moment. And what can be so devastating is if a person is already incredibly emotionally vulnerable and they get tangled up with somebody who's abusive or incredibly exploitative, it can really just push them to the edge. So, I just would encourage anybody, really anybody who's in a toxic relationship, but especially if they're feeling really vulnerable or especially fragile, to to seek out some therapy, or generally a lot of universities, if you live near a four-year university that has a counseling program, a lot of times their counseling is free. So that might be an option. Domestic violence centers oftentimes also have outreach programs, which are also free for counseling. So that's another option. Meetup.com can be a great way of meeting people that are interested in things that you might be interested in. So that can be a way to kind of expand a social circle and to kind of get back out there and cultivate some truly supportive friendships and connections with people. That's a good idea. You're right, Zach. He said medical schools sometimes also offer free services, I believe. I bet you they do. My guess would be it would be for psychiatry, but I don't know. But that's worth exploring. I would hope that they would be able to steer somebody to resources if they didn't offer anything. So thanks, James. He says, I hope all is well with you and your family. Well, it's going as well as it can go right now. And, um, I think the upside to this right now is when there's situations like this, it can bring out the worst in people, but it can also really bring out the best in people. And it's really been awesome to see kind of just the bonding that's been going on between different family members and getting to know my brother and my stepbrother in a different light. That's just been amazing. And just spending quality time with my dad has been really nice. Phil asks, Dana, is it a hospice situation? Yes, yes, it is. But the challenge is we're in that in-between stage where we're hoping, we're trying to get him eligible for more nursing care, because right now all we have is a nurse that's coming in once a week to take his vitals, which is not helpful. We need help with everything. It's a full-time job. So, because he's very weak and he just can't, he needs help with everything. So yeah. But I'm glad that we're all able to be here. I'm very thankful that we're able to kind of circle the wagons like this. Elle mentioned something to Clint. She says, if it makes you feel any better, I always admire men who have the courage to speak up about abuse they have suffered, because they're going against what society tries to make them conform to. I agree. I feel the same way. Who was it? There was a football player, Terry something or other. I forget his name. He came forward about sexual abuse when I think was a child, and became very vocal about his experience, and I just thought that was so cool, because he's just kind of the stereotypical really tough guy, and to share his story, I think really took a lot of courage. And it's just cool to see people coming forward. And it's great that we're at this place in time where abuse is no longer seen as just a woman's issue, that it's becoming more, people's horizons are expanding for understanding who can be abusive and who can be abused, and what different forms of abuse look like. So I really hope in the near future that we're going to see a lot of big positive changes for that, because there truly are a lot of people out there that I don't even think realize that they have been abused, and that really do need services, and just aren't getting them. Terry Bradshaw. Thank you, James. Yes, that's what I'm thinking of. Terry Bradshaw. And James says, yeah, I think there are far more men that are abused and are scared to speak up, and I hope that changes soon. Yes, I agree completely with you. And I hope you're right. I hope that it does start changing. I was, when I was doing my internship, it was at a domestic violence agency, and they had recently changed their name. I won't mention the name just because it's the internet and there's people out there that can get weird, but the name had to do with women. The word women was in their name, and they changed it like a year ago to be more gender neutral. So they took the word women out of their name and then just made it about empowerment. And even though they don't have the funding for a shelter for men, they actually do work with men and get them into safe housing. So that's a huge turning point, because that really was not a thing 10, 15 years ago. Zachary says, Dana, I got into a minor argument with coworkers about CPTSD. They didn't seem to think the complex trauma response is that different from an acute response. And he says, I'm disappointed in the lack of understanding with people in the field. Yeah, I can relate. It's, and I would agree. A lot of people don't seem to truly understand the difference between kind of a complex trauma and a more acute response. One of the ways that I try to describe it, it's the difference between being in war and being a prisoner of war. So both are horrible, both can leave lasting effects, but in different ways. That acute response tends to be related more to the specifics of the trauma experienced versus living in continual fear and anxiety and hopelessness. All of that has, it dramatically affects a person in a very different way. The whole trauma response in general is very interesting, and that's another thing that I feel like as a society, kind of the mental health profession is just on the brink of even kind of digging deep into. So it's going to be an exciting next 5 or 10 years to see what kind of results in that. I don't know. Are you planning on going into studying trauma more in depth by any chance? We need to connect. we need to talk about this more. There's so much. There's so much out there. It's really interesting. Yeah, Sandra says, my therapist definitely doesn't understand. My ex is sociopathic, if not psychopathic, even though she thinks she understands. Oh boy, Claza says, my therapist wants me to try the law of attraction. Well, Claza, the law of attraction is magical thinking. And so I wouldn't subscribe to that point of view. It's really flawed logic. It's the kind of logic that holds true and to a point until it doesn't. And the problem with law of attraction stuff, it's sort of like, so let me back up and let's talk a little bit about magical thinking. So magical thinking is when, and it's easy to slip into, it's when we think that our thoughts or actions have more of an impact than they actually do. So it's when we're confusing causation and correlation. So for example, superstitious behavior is an example of magical thinking. So if I'm superstitious, let's say, and I want my sports team to win, let's say I wear this shirt, right? This sweatshirt. And if my team wins, I might think, oh, it's my lucky sweatshirt. And I might wear it the next game. And if my team wins again, then I'm starting to get confirmation. And this is confirmation bias at play. Oh, well, my sweatshirt must be lucky because my team wins every time I wear my sweatshirt. Well, this holds true, right? Until it doesn't. So once they lose, then we know, because this is how we can tell, because then we can test it out, right? So if I wear my sweatshirt, if my team wins sometimes, but they lose sometimes, then I can tell, is my sweatshirt actually lucky? Or is this correlation? Is this causation or correlation? If I'm not getting the same results on a consistent basis outside with any degree of statistical significance, then I can say, okay, this is just correlation. X doesn't cause Y. With law of attraction stuff, this is where this stuff gets really dangerous, is because then people start taking on responsibility for events that are beyond their control. So a common law of attraction, I need to type all of this out and put it up on my website once that gets going, because I covered this in my book, The Narcissist's Playbook, about faulty thinking like this. And it's really easy to slip into, but it can be really, really dangerous. And it can dramatically impede a person's healing because they're linking up incorrect cause and effect. So if a person's thinking, oh, well, I'm attracting narcissists, so I'm going to try to, I don't want these thoughts in my quote unquote vibration. So they're going to start thinking other thoughts. And that might work for a time. They started coming across decent people. Well, if something bad happens to them, they're going to take on the responsibility of that, because the whole law of attraction is that our thoughts become things, and that we basically have more control over our reality than we actually do. So a way this can get skewed, it's very dangerous because it relies heavily on confirmation bias, and it confuses, it takes valid psychological and neurological principles to a point where they're not accurate. So one of the, I'm trying to just give some good examples here, and I'm sorry, I'm so tired. So like with law of attraction, if you set the intention of that you want $1 million, okay, and the law of attraction practitioners will say, well, any money that comes into your experience, across your path, that you manifested that. And so it's proof that more money's on its way. And so you might set the intention of getting $1 million. And then next thing you know, hey, you're getting a refund check in the mail. You find $1 in your pocket. You find a quarter on the sidewalk. You get a scratch ticket that wins. What tends to happen with that is this isn't proof that $1 million is on its way, or that you manifested that, because that's magical thinking. But also what tends to happen is when a person's so focused on the result that they're going for, that confirmation bias, they tend to block out everything that doesn't meet that existing belief. Gamblers, this is another good example. Gamblers do this. So they'll remember, if you talk to any compulsive gambler, they'll tell you about all the times they've won or how much money they've won. They couldn't tell you how much they've lost, because they're not focusing on, they're glossing over the losses. They're just focusing on the wins. So this can be very dangerous. So if with law of attraction and with, because setting your intention to attract different people isn't going to keep you safe. What's going to keep you safe is basically dealing with reality head on and having healthy boundaries and seeing the behavior of other people clearly. I just really can't stress this enough. I've seen so many people get tangled up in this, and then they just get more and more confused, because then they think, what did I do to attract this? Same thing when people get really ill or a loved one dies. When they're engaging in that magical thinking, they're taking on responsibility to a level that's not appropriate for the events in their life. You know, my dad didn't get cancer because he watched the documentary on cancer, or because, you know, he saw a sign that had the word cancer on it. Like, it doesn't work that way. So, okay, good. Clausa says, Dana, that's exactly what I need. Let me work on fully, I have a whole I went off on this whole tangent. My editor, when I was working on the book, that was one of her comments. She just was like, she's like, you have totally lost me. What does this have to do with manipulation? And I pulled out this whole chapter in the book, and I had to really just shorten it up. And I said, you would be surprised how many people, myself included, have gotten tangled up in you're grasping at straws, and you're so desperate to make your life work, that it's easy that people get caught up in this kind of stuff all the time. And it leads to all kinds of scary, terrible decisions. You know, oh man, like they might think, they make a vision board and they put their pictures of their ideal partner on there. And then they come across somebody that kind of meets that criteria. And then they think, oh, this is meant to be because this is the image that I put on my vision board. I attracted this. And that's the problem. When we think we attracted something, we're going to be very quick to drop all of our boundaries because we think we're taking too much responsibility and we're linking up incorrect cause and effect. So we're like, oh wait, no, I don't need to be cautious with this new person I totally don't know because they're my new partner. I manifested them. This happens all the time. I see this all the time. And of course, then they move full speed ahead because they think this is meant to be. And then boom, this person's a scam artist, or they're, highly exploitative or abusive or whatnot. And then that person is stuck scratching their head thinking, where did I go wrong? I feel like I did everything right. The book, The Gift of Fear, Gavin de Becker talks a little bit about this. He doesn't directly mention law of attraction, but he talked about that was one of the challenges with his job as well, with trying to help empower people to be safe. Is a lot of the kind of the new age thinking is they don't want to think about crime or being a victim of crime because they don't want to attract crime to them. And he was saying he was having a really difficult time with certain people because he was trying to teach situational awareness, but they didn't want to hear anything about it. They wanted to just only think happy thoughts and think about, safety and, people being good to them because they were afraid to attract crime. Well, that the result is that makes a person incredibly vulnerable because that's not dealing with reality. Okay. So let me scroll up here. Let's see, Elizabeth. Oh, that's such a big question. Elle asks, Dana, what do you think to the common narrative that narcissists are connected to demons or Satan? I think what we probably as human beings, since pretty much since there were more than two of us around, evil has gone by many different names as our understanding of it has kind of grown and changed. And I think when a person, if you've ever experienced a complete lack of empathy, remorse, or if you've experienced sadistic, malicious intention, it's evil. And it's absolutely terrifying. And it just sends a shudder through your body. And it's just such a dark vibe that it makes a person, it can make you just feel completely nauseous. So I think that kind of behavior has gone by many names with people just trying to describe it over the years. Demonic, satanic, bad energy, bad vibrations, narcissists. The Bible talks about narcissism and the people that are, lovers of themselves and just that arrogance, that pridefulness, all of that. It talks about that. I'm not saying that there's necessarily like a biblical connection. I just think it's the same type of behavior that's been understood and labeled in different ways over a period of time. I think it's, but so like I said, I think it's the same thing. I don't know. I don't believe in a hell or in like literal demons. But I do believe that evil exists, and I don't think it's necessarily supernatural. I think it's just dark energy that is so far away from what we associate with being human, because such a big part of being human is empathy and remorse and connection and You know, who was it? There was one book, oh, I forget the author, who had mentioned something about, you know, that with narcissists and sociopaths and psychopaths, that they're basically intra-species predators. And I really liked that view on it, because other species don't really have that. They don't attack in their own circle. So it does kind of, I don't know, make you wonder what's going on. But I guess at the end of the day, my focus would be or my encouragement for people would be kind of the whole like a rose by any other name. You know, problematic behavior is problematic behavior is problematic behavior. And I would really encourage people to not get overly caught up on the name that they're naming it. It's just more important that you see it for what it is and that you get out of the way and protect yourself and protect those around you. Okay. Let me scroll up here. Oh, thank you, Phil. He says, Dana, sweetie, you need to look after you. You've taught us very well, and I'm sure we can support one another. You need to focus on you and your dad right now. We love you regardless. Get some sleep. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. I think I'll sign off here in about 5 minutes. It's really nice to be able to I just enjoy the questions you guys ask, and I enjoy it's just very thought-provoking. It'd be nice to have a call-in show, because then it's not just me. You're not just limited to my thoughts. Elizabeth, okay, I think Elizabeth, this was your question. She says, is it possible to work on unjustified jealousy of a partner or not worth it? Well, I mean, anything is possible. I guess my question would be, what do they feel about their jealousy? And are they willing to work on it? And are they willing to have these discussions? And do you have a line in the sand and how do they lash out? So getting an apology from them talking about change, them promising to change, then them, you know, you guys discussing it, none of that is actually change. You know, them changing involves them actually doing things differently. So jealous behavior tends to kind of be part of a ball of yarn that includes a lot of other problematic behavior. Controlling behavior tends to kind of go hand in hand with jealousy. And if that jealousy is unfounded, can be even scarier, because there's really nothing that you can do to reassure them, because that stuff is stemming from their own insecurities. And then the way a person kind of soothes those insecurities is they just need more and more and more control, because that control is reassurance to them. So I think it's important for you to get clear on where your lines in the sand are and what kind of changes you would need to see and in what time frame. And then you'll have your answer. Then you'll know if it's time to go. Yes, Zachary says, I've seen someone be horribly lied to and blamed with law of attraction, as if to say they're at fault and they manifested it. Yes, this is where that logic really starts to fall apart. So then you kind of go out a few steps, right? And it's like, well, another downside to law of attraction is it can really be a skewed argument for like moral neutrality, because then it's like, well, then this person somehow deserved it, right? They attracted it to themselves. So because they must have attracted it to themselves, you know, who are we to get in the way of the energy of the universe, right? Like we have to let these consequences kind of, not that we have to let them play out, but they always will be played out, and we have no control over it because of different different people's energetic vibrations. And of course, if law of attraction really did work, there, people in developing countries, you wouldn't have, you'd be able to get enough people together that are focused on abundance and health and a full tummy and getting medical needs and all of that we would completely eradicate, or at least even make a dent in starvation and HIV and all kinds of things that plague the world, really, but especially developing nations. So it's the appeal for a lot of people for law of attraction is it gives us that sense of control over our life, and that's the appeal. When we set an intention, and here's where kind of the psychology in this comes into play, but this is where it gets skewed. So if we set the intention that we want something, like I mentioned before, oh, okay, I want $1 million, right? And then anything that's even related to money, we're interpreting that as a sign that more money's on its way, that our intention of $1 million is on its way. Then I'm sorry, I just totally lost my train of thought. Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. So the part of the brain that's activated when we start noticing these things more and more, it's called the reticular activating system. And there's different filters that our brain has. So we filter things when information is important to us, sort of like the cocktail party effect. This is why you can be in a room full of crowded people. If they say your name, even if they're not talking to you or about you, but they just happen to mention your name, or they maybe even the name of a loved one or your ex, that you're going to notice that. And if we're attributing more significance to that, like, oh, this is some sort of sign, then that's where things can really lead us astray. So when things are significant to us, that part of our brain, our reticular activating system, is activated, where that filter is on, so we notice it more. You might have heard this referred to as kind of the new car effect. So if you wanted, let's say you really want a cherry red 1965 Mustang, and that's the kind of car you want. Well, next thing you know, you start seeing 1965 cherry red Mustangs everywhere. And you think, my goodness, how is it that all these people all of a sudden have this car? And the reality is, it's not that all these people all of a sudden bought up every Mustang within a 100-mile radius. It's that you're noticing it more. So that's the difference. It's not proof that a Mustang, unfortunately, is on its way into your driveway. So, okay. Yes, Cynthia says, so basically you focus on what you want and you notice it more. And you don't even necessarily need to focus on it. Just having that, if it's something is significant to you, like I said, the name of your pet, the name of your child, your significant other, your parents, your own name, the type of car you drive currently. I don't know about you. I have an old black Volkswagen Jetta, and I see that same car all the time. And it's amazing how many of us are out there that drive old Volkswagen Jettas. It's you just notice things that are significant. So yeah, but that's all it is. It's just that part of the filter of your brain. Yeah, Gareth says, I get so angry with Bob Proctor selling law of attraction courses for thousands, just telling people to attract the money. Bob Proctor, it's too funny. Yeah, there's a lot of, there's a lot of scam artists out there. Unfortunately, I think there's a lot of very well-intentioned people that truly do believe in this kind of stuff, and they believe in it. They have absolute certainty in it. And because they're able to point, just like if this sweatshirt's lucky, I can point to all of the times that my home team, that the Astros one and say, no, no, see, this is lucky, because this is exactly, or the human brain is fascinating how it does this stuff without us even being consciously aware of it. So what happens when we don't get what we want in these situations is we look for what's different. So if there was something different, let's say, for example, I was watching a baseball game. My team always wins when I wear this sweatshirt, but the last game that they played that they lost, the only thing that was different was maybe I had just washed my sweatshirt that day, or that my brother was with me, and those things aren't normally there. So then in an effort to try to control events outside of my control, I'm going to try, maybe next time, I'm not going to wash my sweatshirt before I wear it, or I'm not going to invite my brother to watch the game with me. And we might kind of laugh at this and think, oh, no, this isn't related. It is. You think about the whole kind of Salem witch trials, or how things have been done over the course of centuries, where people get it in their mind that this is the cause of it. Crops are failing because there's a witch, or because we need to repent, or for some unprovable reason. And so what do they, like with witches, what do? Okay, well, we're gonna kill one, we're gonna burn one. Okay, if the crops come back, then we have proof our solution worked. If the crops don't come back, they just keep burning witches. Well, there must be another one here in town. And then they just keep going through witches until the crops come back. And they're attributing incorrect cause and effect. It's just dangerous thinking. Yes, I know. Ellie says the Astros lost this World Series. Yes, I know. We watched every painful game of that. Let's see. Ellie says, Dana, could you recommend channels or shows to watch other than Mindhunter? I will tell you a really great YouTube channel that you guys might enjoy if you like kind of the behind the scenes analysis of criminality, I guess. It's a YouTube channel called Jim Can't Swim. And I think the guy just shortened the name to JCS is his channel. And he does really wonderful breakdowns of police interrogations. So they have videos of police interrogations, and he breaks down the behavior and of both the both the interrogator and the person being interrogated. It's very, very interesting. Elizabeth says, why is it that so many groups of people work like a cult? Some members are clearly privileged over others. You follow the leader, etc. It's the same kind of thing. It's when you have people that are vulnerable, especially if they're kind of lost and seeking, and you have somebody that has a strong personality, especially if they're convincing and they really feel like they have the answers. And like I said, a lot of people that believe in some pretty far out stuff, I don't think that they're malicious, or I don't think that there's a lot of this kind of premeditation to form a cult. I mean, there's certain situations that, yes, there is, but I think that the vast majority of time, you've got people that either are personality disordered, or they're mentally ill, or both, and they're delusional, and they have they're just not in reality, but they're so convincing, and it's very compelling for people that are lost and seeking. So there was a guy, gosh, years ago. I wonder if he's even still alive. I absolutely adored him. His name is James Randi, and he was a magician. And I want to say he worked with Houdini at one point in his career. And both James Randi and Houdini, their kind of common thread, well, besides being magicians, was that they became fascinated with scams and manipulation in general, because that's really what magic is, except we all agree to be manipulated, right? We all know it's magic and that it's not real. But they were fascinated by people that were doing these same types of tricks, but then saying that it was real, and the people that were then buying into that. So, you know, you levitate a person on stage in a magic show, we know it's magic. You do that same thing, you know, on the street, and a person might think that it's demonic, or that maybe you're a prophet because now you're working miracles. So a lot of it's context. Anyways, they were both really big on kind of debunking uh, frauds that were going around scamming people and going after vulnerable people. And James Randi had a whole show back, I think it's back in the 80s, where he would go through, it was, they need to bring a show like that back. It was so good. He offered $1 million prize to people. And his whole thing was basically, if you feel that you have some sort of supernatural power, if you can prove it on the show based on scientific criteria, I'll give you $1 million. And then he would walk the people and the audience through, these are the tests that we're going to do, and we're going to repeat it 3 times. And this is what, statistically speaking, the odds of chance are. So for example, you know, like if you have pictures on index cards, if you were to guess 3 out of 10, maybe that's within the statistical odds of chance. If you guess higher than that, then that's statistically significant. So then they do this 3 times to see if it was just a fluke or if there's actually something there. And they had a wide variety of people on. Some people felt like they were psychic. Some people were channelers. Some people would, I mean, all different types of you know, clairvoyant, clairsentient, clairaudient, you name it. And he was so respectful, and he was so just really great with the way that he treated everybody on the show, which I thought was really nice to see, because I think everybody that came on the show, except for maybe like 1% of them, the vast majority were shocked and angry when they were told that no, he would show how they're actually doing like cold reading, or how they're actually, you know, that psychics would call out certain information and they'd hit on something, and then they dig a little deeper in how this is done, and he would duplicate it and say, okay, this is how a magician would do this exact same trick, except we're doing it consciously, or this person might be doing it subconsciously. They're thinking it's psychic power. We realize it's not. And the magicians were far more adept at, you know, the quote unquote trick than the average, the psychic or the person, whoever it was. So he would walk everybody through it, and it was very informative. Very eye-opening. Okay, let me. Let's see here. Zachary saying, yeah, my mom has some magical thinking. She claims she's an energy healer. Still not clear to me what that means. Thankfully, the apple fell far in that regard. Yeah, you know, it's interesting because there are so many things. Like there was actually a child, like an elementary school student, who came up with a science experiment that debunked energy healing. And it was a really great, I wonder if we could find it on YouTube, a really great test that they did, where basically they would have kind of like intuitive healers. You know, they had a series of people that had issues, and then it was kind of, you know, guess or use your abilities to determine where this person's illness was, or to heal them, to stick your hand kind of, you know, in these holes through this poster board and then be able to work with this person's energy, and if you can sense the energy. And the whole thing was you didn't know if there was actually another person on the other side of it. So it, you know, it was interesting. I will say though, even though I'm not a big believer in that kind of thing with a Reiki, I find it incredibly relaxing. So I don't know if it's placebo effect or kind of what's going on, but it really, it works for me. I mean, it works in the sense of it deeply relaxes me when I'm getting a massage and they're just kind of supposedly doing whatever with, they just have their hands slightly above my body. Like that, I find very, very soothing. Xiao Yu says, Dana, do you know ways to deal with low self-esteem, lack of self-acceptance, maybe things to distract me from that mentality? You know, I would encourage you to, instead of distracting you from that mentality, to take the time to explore it. And here's the thing too with self-esteem is that's one of those concepts, like so many of the other concepts surrounding healing and everything else, that is very vague and often confused. So with self-esteem is generally, it's something that can really be improved upon and it can be built up. And doing, basically proving to yourself that you can do things is huge. So, you know, if you're not a runner, let's say, for example, and you go from, like they have these things like couch to 5K, where you run a 5K, sticking with something and completing it, those types of things are really self-esteem enhancing. I think a lot of people walk around and they have really low self-esteem, but they're not doing anything to actively just build their self-esteem. And that's an important part of building self-esteem because it's the foundation. So just feeling like we're capable and competent without any foundation to that, well, that's kind of just delusional, you know? It's not the same as self-worth. Like self-worth is thinking that, you know, we believe that we're worthy to achieve goals, but self-esteem, esteeming ourselves and building ourselves up, a lot of it comes from noticing like your strengths and noticing the things that you are doing right and noticing your achievements and setting goals and moving forward, those kinds of things. As far as, what was the other one? Self-acceptance. That's a process. And I guess it depends on what part of yourself that you're trying to accept. One of the things that I think can be helpful with that is there's a lot of videos on YouTube where you can see a wide range of people with a wide range of challenges. I might have to go here pretty soon. With physical challenges, you know, mental challenges, emotional challenges, you name it. And I think it can give us perspective and kind of increase our worldview, because when we just realize this world is full of so many people and everybody's got something. And instead of being so focused on what we don't have, it can, or kind of what's wrong with us, it can help seeing the challenges that other people are facing, can help, I think in some ways, allow for us to be more accepting of where we are in life, because it's just part of the human journey. And you know, there's only one you, and you only get one life. And just accepting yourself for where you are it can be an incredibly difficult thing, but it's the point at which change really begins to start happening. Because if we can truly accept, like acknowledge and accept, yeah, this is what's really, I'm dealing with reality head on. Like this is what's really going on. These are my strengths. These are my weaknesses. This is my life. This is who I am. then we can start taking steps to change it. It's when we get in trouble is when we do try to distract ourselves from things that are painful, that we find painful about us, that we don't want to face. This is how people get lost in addiction, and or they become, 500 pounds, or they start trying to cope in all kinds of different ways. So I hope that helped. Okay, I am going. Okay, real quick before I sign off, Rebecca, I'm going to just address this real quick, and then I'm going to just leave the chat on, but I'm going to go see what's going on because I'm hearing a lot of noise outside the door here. Rebecca says, what to do when your self-esteem has been broken apart? I applied for a tutoring job today and told them I got a certain score on a test, and they made me take it, and I did horrible. My self-esteem is broken. One of the things I would encourage you and everybody else, this was a real game changer for me, was realizing that when we have moments like that, because we all have them, they happen. Somebody might end a relationship with us. Somebody might call us names. Things don't go our way. We have an experience like that where we get a score on a test and then we retake it and we just bomb it, and it's embarrassing, and we have struggled with all kinds of emotions. We might feel incompetent and, be full of self-doubt, and just, it's a really icky bunch of feelings to have. We don't have to let that negatively impact our self-esteem. So I would encourage you to keep your self-esteem in its own bucket and realize that it's okay when we have these experiences in life, and they happen to all of us, that we can have these feelings of self-doubt and embarrassment and feeling incompetent and frustrated and all of these uncomfortable feelings. Those can go in their own bucket, but they don't have to spill over and really negatively impact our self-esteem. And I think sometimes just visualizing keeping those two things in two different buckets, like your hurt feelings in one bucket and your self-esteem in another bucket, can really help. So I think a lot of us for too long had those things all in one bucket. And when things weren't going well, we allowed that to negatively impact our self-esteem. And it doesn't need to be that way. So thank you, Doug, so much for the live stream donation. He says, have a nice meal on me. God bless you, Dana. Well, thank you so much, Doug. And it's great to see that you're around. And I appreciate it. I appreciate just the good feelings and good energy sent my way. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate the rest of you guys kind of just holding the steering wheel here while I'm out of state helping take care of my dad. It just really means so much to me. And it just makes my heart smile seeing people supporting one another in this chat. It's amazing that there's still this kind of goodness on the internet. It restores my faith in humanity. So I just appreciate you guys for everything that you do for each other. And I'm going to go ahead and sign off for tonight. I'll leave the chat going, and I will, I'll see you guys at a minimum. I'll see you next Tuesday for the live stream with Angie. So over on my channel this week. Okay. So lots of love to you guys. As always, you are not alone. You are not crazy, and you really can move forward and heal from this. So take care and have a great rest of your night, okay? Goodbye. I'm gonna see if I can mute myself effectively this time. Let me see if I can figure this out. Gosh, you'd think I would have this down by now. Okay, let's try this.